Close your eyes and listen to the pulse of Sector 7. From the hiss of pressurized airlocks to the lethal hum of a thermal blade, we aren't just watching a heist, we are feeling every vibration of this neon underworld. Experience a masterclass in cinematic sound design where every shell casing tells a story. Sector 7, the last city standing on the outer rim of the Karath Expanse. Population 4 million registered citizens, unknown number of unregistered ones. The kind of place where you go to disappear, and sometimes the place that makes you disappear permanently. The power grid here runs on stolen fusion cores, dozens of them siphoned from decommissioned warships and jury-rigged into a network that shouldn't work, but does. Tonight, that hum is the heartbeat of everything. Every neon sign, every security turret, every lock on every vault. To understand Sector 7, you have to understand what it was built on. Not concrete, not steel, desperation. When the central colonies collapsed the trade routes 30 years ago, 3 million refugees flooded the outer rim. They needed shelter, they needed work, they needed someone to blame. They got Sector 7 instead. She doesn't have a name, not here, not anymore. In the bounty hunter registries, she's listed as designation KL7. Among the criminal networks she hunts, they call her something else, something they whisper. She has been tracking the Karath Syndicate for 11 months. 11 months of false leads, burned safe houses, and bounties paid in promises that evaporated like morning fog. But tonight is different. Tonight, she has something she's never had before. A name, a location, a window of 6 hours. The target is Dravek Karath, eldest son of the Syndicate's patriarch, and by all accounts the man who built the Syndicate's off-world smuggling operation from scratch. Weapons, bioware, people. If it had a price tag and no moral ceiling, Dravek shipped it. The contract on him is the largest issued by the ICJC in a decade, the kind of bounty that doesn't just change your life, it ends it, either through success or failure. There is no middle outcome with the Karath Syndicate. KL7 knows this. She knew it when she took the contract. She knows it now, crouched on a rain-slicked rooftop 40 stories above Sector 7's main concourse, watching the building across from her glow like a beacon in the dark. Aurum Tower, 42 floors of corporate architecture designed to communicate one thing: we are untouchable. Reinforced transparent steel, rotating security fields, thermal dampeners on every external surface. A building that doesn't just resist intrusion, it announces resistance. But buildings, no matter how impressive, have blind spots. Every architect has assumptions. Every security system has a designer who made choices. And KL7 has spent 11 months learning every single one of them. Not just credits, not just contraband, evidence, files, the kind of documentation that would bring down not just Dravek, but the entire Karath network, 17 cells operating across 9 colony systems. The ICJC doesn't just want Dravek's body, they want what's in that vault. And so does someone else, someone KL7 doesn't know about yet, someone already inside the building. Entry point, utility corridor, east face, floor 31. 11 minutes to reach sublevel 3 via the maintenance shafts. 11 minutes is her world now. 11 minutes of held breath and calculated movement. Sublevel 3 of Aurum Tower exists in a kind of architectural paradox. Above it, 42 floors of gleaming corporate legitimacy. Restaurants, boardrooms, art that cost more than most colony ships. Below it, nothing. The bedrock of Sector 7 itself. But Sublevel 3 is the truth of what Dravek Karath actually is. It's a vault complex engineered to the same standards as a central bank. 3 airlock-style security doors, each with independent power supplies, biometric scanners at every checkpoint, and at the center, the inner vault, encased in a shell of cortanium alloy, the same material used in military-grade warship hulls. She has 3 tools and 17 minutes. The thermal blade for the secondary conduit behind security door 2, where the wiring is exposed by exactly 4.3 centimeters. A code splitter for the biometric bypass, a device illegal in 14 colony systems and worth more than most people's lives. And a data port spike for the vault's internal memory system once she's inside. She hears it before she processes it. The reflex is already in motion. She's flattened against the wall, blade deactivated, breathing suspended before her conscious mind has even identified what triggered it. Her name, KL7 would later learn, was Sable Morn, former intelligence operative, current complication. She's been hired by a figure even deeper inside the Karath syndicate structure, someone who wanted the evidence in that vault destroyed, not recovered, someone who was themselves on the ICJC list. They had, in the elegant terminology of the trade, opposing objectives and 12 minutes left. This is the moment that defines a professional from an amateur. An amateur panics. A professional calculates. They are both professionals. The first door takes 90 seconds. The conduit breach is clean, a 4-centimeter opening, the blade threading through with a millimeter of clearance on each side. This is not luck. This is 11 months of preparation distilled into 90 seconds of absolute precision. Door 2 is the splitter's domain. The device cycles through 40,000 biometric combinations per minute, and it needs to find the right sequence in the next 3 minutes or the system flags an intrusion attempt and the building goes to full lockdown. KL7 watches the counter. Sable watches the corridor. This is what teamwork looks like when trust doesn't exist. Pure function. Door 3 is where Sable's component matters. A secondary biometric bypass, a physical override device hardwired into the syndicate's own security architecture by whoever inside the organization hired her. A backdoor built by the people who built the vault for use if they ever needed to purge the evidence themselves. The perfect corruption, a security system with a kill switch for those who knew the secret. 47 seconds. That's how long the transfer takes. 47 seconds of standing inside a vault that is about to be surrounded with a woman who might still choose to kill her, listening to the countdown of approaching footsteps. Behind them, security breach alarms began to cascade through the system, not triggered by them, triggered by the vault detecting the data wipe, Karath's own system betraying his sanctuary. This is the moment that never makes it into the official reports. The bounty hunter's official account will list successful retrieval of evidence, sublevel 3, Orem Tower, Sector 7. Duration of operation, 41 minutes, 0 casualties, 1 civilian-class secondary operative encountered and released. What the report won't mention is the 40 seconds they stood on that rooftop, soaking wet, not speaking, just breathing the same cold air of a city that tried to swallow them and didn't manage it tonight. Sector 7 doesn't notice. It never does. 4 million lives, registered and unregistered, living their lives in the neon and the rain. Somewhere in the sublevels, Dravek Karath is discovering that his vault is empty and his secrets are gone. Somewhere in the ICJC secure server farm on Colony Station Peliath, 17 files are arriving that will take 2 years to process and will ultimately result in 43 arrests across 9 systems. None of that is now. Now is just rain and the hum of the city, and a bounty hunter on a rooftop already opening her next contract file. Here's what I want you to sit with for a moment. We've been in Sector 7 for the better part of an hour now, through rain and vaults and the moral mathematics that bounty hunters do in the dark. And if you felt it, if you felt the weight of those boots on wet metal, if the airlock hiss made something tighten in your chest, then you've experienced exactly what we set out to show. Sound is not decoration. Sound is not atmosphere in the way that a painting is atmosphere, something you appreciate but keep at a distance. Sound is the medium through which we build our sense of reality itself. Before you see something, you hear it. Before you trust something, you've already assessed its sound. A door that sounds solid, a person whose footsteps sound confident, a city whose hum sounds alive. Sector 7 works because it has a great script or impressive visuals. It works because every creative decision, every rainfall texture, every blade activation, every shell casing on concrete was made with the knowledge that you, the audience, are an incredibly sophisticated sound processor. You've been doing this since before you were born. And when a story trusts that, when it builds its world in sound as well as image, something remarkable happens. You stop watching, you start being there. But let's stay in Sector 7 a little longer, because there's more to say about the world we've only glimpsed. The Neon City isn't just a backdrop, it's a character with its own history, its own wounds, its own wants. The Outer Rim colonies, and Sector 7 is the largest of them, exist in a strange political twilight, too far from the central systems to be properly governed, too populous and resource-rich to be ignored. The result is what political theorists call a managed void, a space where official law exists on paper, but real law is negotiated between power structures. The Korath Syndicate is one of those structures. There are others. The Outer Rim Merchants Cooperative controls the supply chains. The Pelith Navigation Guild controls who can travel between systems. The Biosphere Collective, a loose organization of scientists and medics, controls access to medical technology in regions where the central pharmaceutical companies won't operate. And threading between all of them, working for whoever needs them and loyal to nothing but the contract, are people like Kale 7. This is what makes the Outer Rim compelling as a setting. It's not a lawless wasteland, that's a lazy reading. It's a society that has developed its own order, its own justice, its own hierarchies, just not the ones the central colonies would recognize. And Sector 7, with its 4 million people and its stolen fusion cores and its neon signs and its rain, is the most concentrated expression of that alternative civilization you'll find anywhere in the known galaxy. Kale 7 grew up in Sector 7, not in the tower levels where the Syndicate operates, but in the lower concourse, the place where the rain collects before the drainage systems cycle it back up. She knows this city the way you know something that shaped you, with affection and resentment in equal measure. She was 16 when she saw her first bounty hunter work, a woman named Seska Dahl, old enough to have a reputation in 3 systems, young enough to still move like a shadow. Sheska was tracking a weapon smuggler through the sector's mid-levels, and the teenage girl who would one day be designated Kale 7 watched from a 3rd-floor window as she ran the man down, subdued him with 3 efficient moves, and walked him to the nearest ICJC liaison post. No drama, no wasted motion, pure craft. The files arrived at the ICJC secure server at 0317 Standard Time, Sector 7 local. They were immediately flagged, encrypted under triple lock protocol, and assigned to an investigative team within the hour. What was in them? Everything. Transaction records going back 8 years, ship manifests for cargo that never appeared on any official register, communication logs, encrypted but the ICJC's cryptography division would crock within 6 weeks, between Dravek Korath and figures in the Central Colony Administration. Not just criminals, elected officials, appointed judges, a sector governor, a shipping commissioner whose name appeared in connection with 3 separate human trafficking operations. The files were, in the language of the investigators who processed them, comprehensive beyond expectation. Dravek Korath kept records not out of incompetence, but out of power. The records were his insurance policy, evidence that could destroy his partners if they ever moved against him, a mutual destruction pact encoded in data. It's a strategy that works perfectly right up until the moment someone steals your copies. Within 48 hours of the files arriving at the ICJC, Dravek Korath was on a fast transport heading for the frontier territories, the lawless edge of the galaxy where even the ICJC's reach goes thin. He would not be apprehended for another 3 years, but the network was already collapsing. Without the insurance the files provided, his partners in the central administration distanced themselves. The syndicate's funding dried up. The 17 cells in 9 systems started making mistakes that careful organizations don't make. One night, one hunter, one vault. The ripples would take years to fully play out. Sable Morn filed her report to her client within 6 hours of leaving Sector 7. The files had been retrieved and destroyed by the ICJC operative, she wrote. The vault was clean. The client's name had not appeared in any transferred data. Whether this was true, whether KL7 had honored the unspoken agreement and genuinely scrubbed Sable's client from the files before transmitting, is a question that the official record doesn't answer. The ICJC investigators working through the data would later confirm that several financial references in the Koroth files appear to have been partially redacted by the transmission process. Equipment malfunction, the official finding stated. Whether KL7 made a deliberate choice in that vault or whether the equipment simply malfunctioned is a distinction that depends on what you believe about who she is. And that, perhaps, is the point. Bounty hunters operate in the space between systems, between loyalties, between the stories that different sides tell about who deserves what. KL7's moral landscape is not ours. It was built in the lower concourse of Sector 7, shaped by Sheska Dahl's 3 efficient moves and refined by 11 months of hunting a man through a galaxy that doesn't care about clean answers. What she did with those files is the most interesting question the story asks, and it leaves it open, because good stories trust you to sit with open questions. We began here, with the instruction to close your eyes and listen. You've had time now to open them, to see the corridors, the vault, the rooftop, the figures moving through the neon dark. So let's close them again, one more time, and feel what we've built. Sector 7 was here before KL7 arrived. It will be here after she leaves. It will absorb the consequence of the vault, the way it absorbs everything, with the patient indifference of a city that has seen too much to be surprised by any single story. 4 million lives continuing, the neon signs cycling, the power grid humming its constant, stolen song. A bounty hunter passes through. Files change hands. The syndicate contracts. Justice is served, partially, imperfectly, the way justice is always when it has to travel this far from the systems that generate it. And Sector 7 continues. This is what immersive storytelling is for. Not to convince you that a world exists, but to let you inhabit it long enough that you start to feel the weight of what it means. The rain is real when you hear it long enough. The grid hum becomes familiar. The boots on wet metal become a rhythm you can predict. And then, when a bounty hunter we barely know makes a choice in the dark of a vault with time running out and the sound of footsteps overhead, you feel the weight of it, because you've been there. Sound put you there, and now it's yours. Every shell casing tells a story. We said that at the beginning, and it's true, but here's the fuller version of what that means. A shell casing falling on concrete doesn't just tell you about the weapon being fired. It tells you about the floor it lands on, whether it's wet or dry, tile or metal or carpet. It tells you about the space, whether the casing's ring echoes in a corridor or dies in an open room. It tells you about the moment, whether the shot was expected or sudden, whether the aftermath is silence or chaos. The sound designer's job, and the screenwriter's job, and the director's job, and the job of every person who works to build a world you can inhabit is to understand that stories live in the details, not the plot beats, not the character arcs, the texture, the precise hiss of a specific airlock in a specific city that runs on stolen power, the precise lethal hum of a thermal blade being held by someone who knows exactly what they're doing. These are the things that make you believe, and belief is everything. Sector 7 will be here when you come back. The neon underworld remembers everyone who passes through it. It doesn't judge, it doesn't reward, it simply continues, humming its low, persistent frequency in the dark between the stars.